Welcome back to the Tale of Edgar Trunk official podcast. This is episode 3. We are discussing chapters 5 and 6. I'm Jason Silva, author of the series, and I have with me
Annette Silva. What's up?
Annette. How did you feel reading these 2 chapters? We sort of started with this creepy, dark first few chapters. We got into action last week with the adventure really beginning. And here we are, 2 more chapters. What's the vibe?
You know, when Edgar walked away at the end of the last episode we did, he left his room. He left everything he knew. He had just painted with those creation stones. And I thought he was never coming back. So I was a little surprised with where we ended up. And I want to talk about that. So walk us through this chapter 5.
All right, so chapter 5, it's titled The Shadow and the Trembling Room. The summary is Edgar gets lost in the maze of hallways, which is in and of itself alarming because he knows the place like the back of his hand. Not so much the case this time. He arrives at a dead-end hallway, and at the dead end, it's like this shadowy darkness. And he is realizing the halls themselves must be moving and reforming because, as I said, he knows this place like the back of his hand, and yet now none of it is familiar. His dread, realizing this, goes sky high, and he notices in this darkened area at the end of this dead end, 2 yellow eyes appear. Understandably, he runs, and a black creeping cloud pursues him. Edgar realizes as he's running and glancing back over his shoulder, there must be a creature hidden within this cloud. It's this thing with yellow eyes, and Edgar is just desperately trying every door, and of course they're all locked. He continues fleeing, he's running, he's making a dead sprint, he's sliding around corners, he's doing his best to escape nimbly and quickly. He's feeling helpless and tired, and finally he rounds a particular bend and looks and sees the blue 3s again that he was told to look for and that he had followed before. Well, he sees them again. They're like a magical trail guiding him, and they lead to a door. He tries it. Sure enough, this one opens. He scrambles inside, slams the door shut, locks all these locks that are on the door, and realizes he's in this disgusting, neglected bathroom. Now, despite the grotesquerie of the scene that is described in detail, there is a blue 3 hovering magically in the air. Edgar touches it and realizes it's made of ice, but it's not melting. Meanwhile, the thing that was chasing him has caught up. It begins to pound on the door from the outside. It wants to get in. The locks begin to break free, and Edgar is pretty certain this is going to be the end of him. Then he notices a secret passage has opened up where one of the urinals used to be. Without hesitation, he takes it, and now he finds himself in this dark hidden passage where the walls are sort of like rough-hewn, rocky, and as he makes his way deeper, they become smooth, and there's little lights, and the walls are actually like plates of metal now. And so he's making his way along this new hidden passageway. He ends up in this narrow chamber with really high ceilings. And when I say narrow, I mean it's like 3 feet wide. Like he could touch both walls at the same time, just reaching out his arms. But above, the ceiling kind of just goes way up high. It disappears into darkness. And he is noticing there is like this doorway on the other side. He has entered through this little kind of square doorway, and then on the other side, there is another similar doorway. And he's found himself in this room and is just sort of cautiously making his way through when suddenly he hears this low and distant rumble that is quickly traveling toward him. All of a sudden, it's like a little earthquake hits the room. Everything is shaking. Bits of stone are crumbling down. Even the floor seems to be shifting. Um, Edgar, in the midst of this, is stumbling, trying to make his way across to safety. And about halfway, he realizes he's not alone. A terrible feeling inside him and survival instinct just kind of cause him to suddenly duck. And as he ducks, the large, dark cloud creature shoots past him. Like it would have collided with him, but he ducked just in time. And because it misses Edgar, it flies right over him and lands and kind of comes to a halt and now finds itself between Edgar's current position and safety on the side. And now we have met it. I should mention that as these little mini quakes come and they stop, Edgar realizes the floor is comprised of like these stone rectangles, these slabs. And as they part, light and heat are sort of escaping up through the cracks. These things are like floating on top of lava. There's lava underneath. This would be, this is such a fantasy of our son Sage.
The floor is lava.
So I can't wait for when he's a little older and we're reading this book with him because he loves the floor is lava. Like he'll just be eating breakfast and he's like, Dad, Mama, get up. The floor is lava. And so he is always thinking about this game. The floor is at any moment will turn to lava. And that is exactly how this is for Edgar. So anyway, he's in this floor is lava room. He's met it, who is this creature that's been following him, who he's heard about as being terrible. And he literally is like, has to face it to get to safety. And its true, or at least current form right now that we get to see it, is that of like this massive wolf with black fur and yellow eyes. And it speaks to Edgar with a very notable hiss. So this is the hiss that we've heard prior. It was it. It smiles and tells Edgar that him, who we've also heard about, is its master, is going to be really happy to learn that Edgar is finally dead. Edgar's like, but I'm not dead. Oh, he realizes what it wants. So it proceeds to go after Edgar, but fortunately for Edgar, these little mini quakes, these little mini quakes keep coming, making it very difficult for it, who's very large, to get good traction, get footing, and to make a proper attack. Not that it's much easier for Edgar, but Edgar is pretty nimble, he's smaller, and sort of the playing field is a little bit more evened out for this encounter. In between these quakes, it begins to speak inside Edgar's mind. It's like taunting him. It's like he's toying with him, savoring the kill, so to speak. And so after this a fair bit of taunting, the room begins to shake again. The stone slabs begin to shift. Edgar notices there's a figure in white who's like on the other side of it. It turns out to be Stewpot. Stewpot begins to hurl rocks at it. And between the shaking room and the rock throwing, Edgar is able to escape to the other side of the room. And at the very last moment, Stewpot activates this like security gate that closes off the passage, sealing it on the other side. It is understandably terribly angry, but it doesn't matter because Stewpot leads Edgar away and it is trapped in this floor is lava room.
Stewpot saves the day.
Yes, Stewpot.
Oh, love Stewpot.
There is this like whole section that I wanted to read. It's sort of like the role and importance of reading in Edgar's world and also how that has like prepared him for what's happening now. So I think I'll just read that and then we can talk about that.
Yeah, jump in.
Obviously,
what page is it?
Oh, so that's page 69 at the bottom. In that very lengthy summary, a lot happens. I mean, just a quick comment on the summary of this chapter. We finally meet it. It is a tremendous villain. It is scary and evil. It's supernatural. It takes the shape of a black cloud, but it's also a wolf. It hisses. It's got these eyes. It is a being / creature that is pretty heartless. It is all about the hunt. and it is hunting Edgar. And poor Edgar is just terrifying. He's trying to stay afloat in this new mystery, new areas of the factory he's never been in. I mean, it's his world that he's known for 9 years, and yet it's an entirely new world.
And I just want to clarify, there are 3 bad guys. There's the cloaked figure. There's the shadow / cloud / wolf.
Slash it.
And then there's him.
Right. So we're gonna, and there's a really great passage offers a little bit of clarity with regards to that. So absolutely, when we got to talk about that. This first one, this is all about books. So this is before like the encounter. This is like begins with a reflection of Edgar noticing these metal copper plated walls. This is where it begins. Edgar had read hundreds of books over the years thanks to Stewpot's uncanny ability to find them wherever he did. He'd sacrificed hours of sleep for many a good story. Page by page, he'd gained a worldly bank of knowledge far surpassing the factory walls. Through his imagination, he traveled the universe. He summoned images both glorious and baffling. Even though Warnock eventually found each book and burned it to cinders, Edgar was able to get by on the assurance that Stewpot would soon bring him another. But sometimes Edgar dreamed of things he had not read in books. He envisioned a stranger in a cloak coming to take him. He tried to see the figure clearly, but could never get his mind around it. The figure darted out of view before he could get a good look. Another vision of a great banyan tree with colorful leaves appeared to him when he felt really down. Most baffling, though, was a dream he had of a mammoth set of copper-plated globes, a machine of some sort. Not like the machines he occasionally glimpsed before a door slammed shut. This was grander, brighter, cleaner, more powerful. All 3 called to him. As different as the visions were, Edgar felt in his heart that they were linked. He'd had the dream about the stranger in a cloak 7 out of the last 9 nights. Edgar hardly thought it coincidental, given his uncle's recent mutterings. He'd overheard Warnock talking to himself about the cloaked stranger several times lately. Warnock seemed jumpier than usual, too. A year ago, the whole Krillo gag that Stewpot pulled wouldn't have stood a chance frightening Warnock. Warnock would have seen right through it and beaten both him and Stewpot to a pulp for a prank like that. But this time, he'd panicked at the sound of slapping Krillo feet that Stewpot was making and squealed out of the room, 2 things Edgar had never seen his uncle do before. So, Edgar goes on to think, something funny was definitely going on in the factory. The last few days had proved that. What concerned him was the way he woke up feeling cold and empty, and the way the vision of this banyan tree came to soothe him recently to little effect. Now the machine. Edgar tried to remember a time he'd seen anything remotely similar to the mammoth copper-plated globes from his dreams. There in the tunnel was the first. The metal plates running the length, though tarnished and old, showed signs of having once been brilliant and shiny. Had his pristine globes from his dreams suffered a similar fate? This machine he's imagining? Was it somehow all connected? So we're starting to get so the 2 things. One, the power of books and the imagination, and how even though his life and his world have been narrow and very limited to this factory, through reading, he's been able to get beyond the bounds of that. He's been able to experience, learn about, visualize so much more. And then beyond that, he's able to and has been able to experience even broader worlds of his imagination through dreams. Now, something recurring in his dream, this cloaked stranger, this banyan tree, talking about imagery now, but new to the table of ideas in the book so far is this machine. Now, we've heard mention of a world machine. Now he's describing what he just feels as a machine, these kind of large globes and made of metal. And now he's seeing the same material, but not in his dreams. He's seeing it in this hallway that he's in. So There's another passage later that I want to talk about that is more specific to the factory. But we're starting to get a sense that there are big components to this world that are affecting Edgar that are seem to be important. We're not sure why yet.
These dreams he's having too, I mean, they feel very relatable because I think we all dream and we have good dreams, we have bad dreams, and then we have weird, confusing dreams. So we're seeing a variety of the type of dreams that his mind is creating as he's sleeping, which, if I were Edgar, I feel like I would just dream of a white, pristine steam shower to clean off all the gunk from the years of no bathing. I would dream of big, long tables full of gourmet food. Not Edgar. He's dreaming about a cloaked figure, a banyan tree, and a big copper-plated globes machine.
What do you make of this banyan tree?
Well, I didn't know what they were called until you. And I know that you have a very strong connection to banyan trees. You love them very much. And I know that they represent strength because of how they're rooted and how their branch come back down to the roots and re-strengthen themselves.
We should quickly describe. So a banyan tree, if you're lucky enough to see one, I'm sure you've had the same impression. They're very enchanting, magical, incredible. And what makes them really unique is that their root system, number one, they're really big trees.
Yeah.
But their root systems don't just travel the ground like normal trees. They extend up toward the canopies. And so from certain angles or perspectives, a banyan tree might look like several smaller trees, but you're actually just seeing these roots. And the canopies are full and wide and beautiful, and they're just otherworldly.
They are.
There's no other tree like a banyan tree, or that like family of trees. And so they have a really magical quality to them. They're very mystical.
Do you think he dreams of banyan trees because he's read about them, or is his mind seeing something?
It's explored a little bit later in the book, but he learns, or at least comes to believe that he was born under banyan tree. And so this is like an image that his mind has held on to, and the subconscious is now, or does from time to time, deliver to him to bring him to a happier place to kind of calm him.
I love that. Okay, so obviously this mammoth set of copper-plated globes, a machine of some sort, is a huge clue and foreshadowing to bigger picture things that we will explore, especially in book 3. What can you tell me about it now that isn't like bombshell spoiler alert?
Well, I think it's important to be aware of a connection that Edgar feels to the machine. So we know there's like mechanical workers. We know it's a factory. We know that machines are part of the lay of this land, but this is a special thing. And we're going to start to hear more about this quote unquote world machine and its role. I mean, just by the name, you could tell like it's a machine that has an impact on the world. So that is of that scale, a world machine. And so whether this is part of or the entirety of that machine is to be discovered, but Edgar has some sort of connection to this machine. It's these big globes, and they seem to be either asleep or deteriorating, certainly not in use and definitely not in their prime. And so again, it's this imagery of like a place forgotten by time. It's like the technology that's been dormant or that is sleeping. And who really knows the length duration of that slumber? We'll start to get into that. But yeah, it's just this. There is a connection, and when machines are involved, especially copper plated or like this world machine is mentioned, we should probably pay close attention.
Yeah. And the other dream he's having about the cloaked figure, I mean, isn't Uncle Warnock also having these nightmares about this same person?
Yeah. So with regards to the cloaked stranger, cloaked figure, Warnock's terrified of him being haunted by images or the reality or the itself, the cloaked stranger. It's not really clear, but haunts Warnock haunts Edgar. Edgar, though, he often sees this cloaked figure in his dreams, which there's some regularity, but certainly doesn't feel often. Recently, up like the week leading up to like these few days that we've experienced in the story where this stuff's starting to go down. Edgar's now like venturing out, like the strange sounds. So like the week leading up to that, it was very frequent, these dreams. So yeah, we'll want to pay attention to that as well. And I think it's the next chapter. There's a passage that ties into what we're talking about. So we'll continue the conversation when we get to that.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we jump into meeting it?
Yeah, I mean, we have heard it. We've had like
That's a good boy.
we've had somewhat glimpses of it, but we have yet to really meet, and we've heard of it secondhand through others. But then on page 75 at the bottom, we get this actual description finally. It was the biggest wolf he'd ever seen, 4 times his size, fur as black as coal, 2 dangerous fangs protruding. Its amber eyes shimmered amid the darkness that engulfed it. Pretty terrifying.
Yeah, it's horrifying. Okay. I'm not scared of praying mantises, as we've established. But guess what? Wolves are scary. Even nice wolves, which don't exist.
Yeah, like have we met a nice wolf that didn't secretly want something like your grandma?
I bet there are wolves out there that are actually really nice guys, and they're like, man, we get a really bad rep.
Yeah. Wolves are like, I know, but I'm not like them.
Yeah, I'm vegan.
I hate meat. I hate grandma. I hate Red Riding Hood.
I hate Belle from Beauty and the Beast. Okay, so I loved meeting it because it helped clarify for me a little bit of the hierarchy of villainry,
Villains?
the
Yeah,
hierarchy of the villains.
villainesquerie.
Because he sees Edgar and he starts talking to him, and he's like, "Despicable boy. Master's going to be very pleased to know you're finally dead." And he goes on to say, "Stupid boy, there's only one master. Him." And so now we understand, like, him is controlling it, and its goal is to have Edgar. So we're kind of learning, like, okay, what's it up to? And why does he want Edgar?
Yeah, why does him want Edgar? What is so important about Edgar? And yeah, it is like this henchman for him.
Yeah.
And I feel like up to this point, we're meeting it, and it is over everything. It doesn't fear anything. It's like, certainly wouldn't fear Warnock. I doubt this cloaked figure would matter. It's just like, it's an unstoppable force in a way.
Yeah. Scary.
I don't know how you can win against it.
Well, Edgar does.
At least temporarily. Yeah. I mean, thanks to Stewpot creating a diversion, good old Stewpot, he may not be worth much. He might not really be able to fully protect Edgar, even though I'm sure he would, and does try to the best of his abilities. he is sort of a master of diversions.
Yeah. And he's smarter than he lets on.
Oh, yeah.
So he can save Edgar because he's got decades more of experience working through the factory. He knows how to get out of rooms, how to get back home, which ultimately is what he does with Edgar. And he saved him. Thank God he was there.
Yeah. So now's probably a good segue into chapter 6.
Let's do it. And this is what I was saying, how like, at the end of our last episode, Edgar was like, door slammed shut. He's leaving. Uncle Warnock doesn't care anymore. Edgar's on his own. And yet, one chapter later, he's already getting saved by Stew Pot. If I were Edgar, I would be scared out of my mind.
Well, thank goodness he's got someone looking after him.
Yeah, he does. Okay, so Stew Pot brings him into a steam room and shares with Edgar.
Well, when you say steam room, like at the club?
Into a steam room.
Yeah, but it's like at the spa.
No, it's like a room that like has all of these valves and pipes and steams like coming out of all of them. And of course, Stew Pot knows how to work them all.
Yeah. I was going to say, he takes him into a steam room. Like, what is this? The Four Seasons? Is this Burke Williams spa?
Yeah, you want a massage?
Do they get like a warm towel and cold cucumber slices to put on there?
Yeah. Oh, babe. He tells Edgar that his mom brought him here, which is like whoosh, mind blown. First time learning he had a mom. And that it and him both want him dead. Stew Pot wants to protect Edgar in his room, but Edgar knows there's more to the world. Stew Pot also tells him that it was a sunset that he drew with his magical chalk, aka the creation stones, but that he can't leave the factory. By he, I mean Stew Pot. He's like, I know you want to explore, but I can't. The factory needs me, and the factory's alive. So they say goodbye, and Stew Pot, of course, says, say hi to my friend, if you see him.
Mm.
And then Edgar escapes, and when he gets out, he is so overcome with exhaustion that he collapses into sleep. And that is where we end chapter 6.
So it's a short chapter, but there's a lot of good information about like what's happening. Not saying full answers, but at least we're getting something. What do you make of this little bit? So Stew Pot glanced about the room paranoid. He spoke in a soft voice. The factory, it's alive. And then Edgar is confused, understandably. Stew Pot goes on to say, the walls, no, they listen to us. They watch us. But the thing, here Stew Pot takes a deep breath. He looks like he's fighting back terror. It, he says, the wolf, it's different from the factory. It doesn't belong here. Boss, meaning Warnock, spoke of it. He knew it was coming. In his sleep, he was saying the cloak wasn't going to be happy either. So again, this like dynamic between the baddies.
Yeah.
And you start to wonder, is this maybe the ramp up to why Warnock was so ready to just let Edgar go to his own devices?
Yeah, because he's probably gotten to a point where he's like, it's going to happen anyway. And by it, I mean it.
Yeah, no, it's like it in caps or it in lowercase?
Both.
So we get a little bit further description. Edgar says, this is when Stew Pot says, your mother brought you here. And he's like, my mother? And Stew Pot quickly says, and the factory too. It brought you. Remember, the factory is alive, Stew Pot has said. Now he's saying the factory brought Edgar. Now Edgar says, how can a factory bring me to itself? Stew Pot continues, it's alive. Part of it is very powerful, but powerful bad now, not good. But it is worse. If its master, him, finds out you're alive, it'll be bad. More bad than anything in the world, which is, we know, is improper grammar, but it's how Stupa talks. That's why it was here. Boss was talking in his sleep, and somehow I think it caught wind of it. Not even the factory can keep it from hearing things. So now we've been introduced to yet another sort of being, presence, the factory itself.
Yeah. I mean, it is alive. It lives and breathes. It creates. It is reactive.
The doors
And
open and close at will.
oh, yeah. Of course it's alive.
So what does that mean to be alive as a structure? It's like this creepy haunted house in a way.
It's like an organism.
There's like it's got a spirit somehow.
Yeah.
So not only has Edgar barely survived a terrible Uncle Warnock and living in a factory, and this mysterious cloaked figure that leaves him cold, feeling cold and empty. Now he's on the run from this wolf-like creature, it. Now he learns the factory is alive, and that it is partly the reason, weirdly, that he is there. Alongside his mother brought him there, his own mother. Why would she do that? There must have been a reason. And we leave this chapter, as you stated. Edgar's exhausted. He's alone. Stewpot can't help him. Stewpot has stated he is part of the factory in a way. He can't leave it. He also goes on to talk about that the factory is neither good nor bad. It just is. But it is under the influence of something that is leaning it towards evil, which certainly makes sense, and we're definitely feeling that.
Why do you think Stewpot has this great loyalty to this factory that he knows is bad when Stewpot is such a good person?
I wonder if Stewpot. So I'm just processing this right now, like the clearest way to say it. I feel like everyone is capable of being good, and yet not everyone will be a hero. And so Stewpot is maybe acknowledging that he is good, but he is not a hero. And Edgar, who is our hero of this story, who's going in this adventure, going on this journey, he is rescued a few times by Stewpot, and I kind of feel like Stewpot is saying, and earlier this other stranger with the beak, who we know is a Krillo. We'll learn more about that later. Who says, if I've helped you, I've done my job. Hopefully I never see you again. There are people, creatures, whatever you want to call them, that want to help Edgar. Edgar is clearly important. He's wanted dead. Edgar has a connection to this factory, this machine. And there is a point where Edgar cannot be saved by those who are good. Edgar needs to step up and be the hero. Because whether it's the world or whether it's these other creatures, being people, that they're in need of a hero, the world is in need of a hero, and it is not them. Edgar has to be the hero. They are hoping Edgar will be the hero. So will he?
Well, he better. His face is on the cover of this book. And he is a brave little boy. He's courageous. He's curious. And he's unwilling to just accept the way things are because he knows there's more.
He has the makings of a hero, but he is at the same time really only now learning about the greater context of the world, these other parties involved, his role. I mean, he might want to be a hero to save the world, but he doesn't know that the world needs a hero, and he doesn't know what being a hero means. but he does have these instincts. And he's young. He's 10. He's a kid. It's not like, he's an adult with a lot of wisdom and experience to be behind him. This is all new to him. He's, making it up as he goes.
Yeah, he's figuring it out as he goes. I mean, what's door number 3 going to hold behind it?
Yeah, that's sort of how it feels going into the next few chapters for the next episode. It certainly seems like Edgar needs more information. He's gotten some, but it's baffling information. There's no resolution in it. There's not even really a plan of attack baked into the information that he's gotten so far. He needs something to be able to get a grip on so that he can then problem solve around like what to do.
I think too, like, especially when we get into book 2, we'll kind of see the evolution of Edgar, because in book 1, he's a very observant and reactive character whose things are happening to him that he's reacting to. Whereas in book 2, he becomes a very proactive character because he's evolved and he's learned a lot about the world and he's taking more of a stance on it. And that just continues to snowball as we get into book 3. And I'm sure further on, like, he's not just someone who's letting the world happen to him. He's actually making choices to better his life, to better the world around him, which is really cool to see him in this stage right now where he's like, just, like the rest of us, just like taking it all in and understanding this world and learning from it.
Totally agree. And I would defend him a little bit. In book 1, he easily comes across as reactive because things are happening that are beyond his control. But I think a reactionary character would just go and hide and go to whatever felt like the safest place and not move from that unless forced to. I think Edgar is confronting the danger and the mystery head on. He does get help, which he needs. He isn't there yet in his journey. He has been heaped upon by this mystery, danger, conflict, but still there is a proactive aspect to him, which is he's investigating things when he can. He is trying to make sense of what's going on. He is asking the questions. He is using all of his knowledge to try and make sense of everything. And he certainly wants to solve a problem, but he isn't sure what that problem is yet. And he doesn't know yet. He is certainly at the mercy of those he is now meeting and encountering that are going to give him these little morsels to work off of. But he is very much on the hunt himself to try and get to the bottom of whatever's going on. So, it's that curiosity we talked about last week. It's the drive inside of him to do good, to be better, to not settle, not sit back and be acted upon. So I do think he is proactive, but he doesn't have a masterful grip on what's going on, and therefore he is not equipped to be as proactive as we might traditionally think of a protagonist in a story. And I think largely that's due to the overwhelming mystery of this first book. Not that there isn't overwhelming mystery in the subsequent um, books in the series, but this one in particular, he's been thrust in the middle and he's got to get oriented. And I think that what we're seeing is him making the best decisions and being as active as he can be, but there's still information that he needs.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is like prime information gathering stage for him.
And for us too, as the reader, it's a new world. There are new types of characters. There's new lore, new technology, and so there's a lot of world building that is sort of happening as Edgar finds himself on the run.
I love the world building and I love the characters that we've met so far because they all, like, I can see them so clearly in my head and they're all so, like, very detailed and very different and distinct from each other. I wish you could have done chapter illustrations for this book because oh my God, how cool they would look.
I think that would have been really fun. It's something that so we did chapter illustrations for book 3. Books 1 and 2 don't have them, but books 1 and 2 are also almost sold out entirely. That'd be around 10,000 copies sold once those are gone. And I don't know that we'll do more. We've done several print runs of the first 2 books, and I'm kind of looking forward to doing like maybe a paperback release with different artwork,
Yeah.
just like adding a fresh new look
Yeah.
to it, but also like letting the initial hardcovers be collectible.
Yeah.
They're special, and um, I like the idea that they might be more of an exclusive, limited quantity thing. And certainly that's how book 3, we're taking on book 3, which released this year. But yeah, I'm definitely on board with in a reversioning that goes to paperback that we get to do those chapter illustrations for those versions.
Yeah. That would be really fun. I could see it in my head.
Ah, so 2 really, last week we had an action-packed chapter. This week we got another action-packed chapter, but we've got more context. We've got like, Edgar was allowed to be free. I mean, take that at face value. He's certainly not free, but he was kind of full-time released from his imprisonment of his room that he was always in. And now he has met some more villains and he's gotten some more help, but it seems like he is now fully leaving the protection of anyone who's ever been a part of his life up until now. And it feels like if we meet Stupot again, that'd be great. But I don't expect that Stupot is like this level of protection anymore. Now I feel like Edgar truly is on his own.
Yep. He like got to call a friend with this mystery character with the beak. He got to call a friend with Stew Pot. He's out of call a friend cards.
That's right. Now it's like, feast or famine.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to dig into those next chapters. But I really like the pace of how, even though we've got like some high action sequences, which is fun and it moves along, I feel like we've got slow moments too. And we're meeting these characters. And it does feel like a steady build that is more creeping than like action packed.
Yeah. And I feel like it's a really good cadence of like visual action packed scenes and then like very dialogue driven information gathering scenes as well, which is really fun.
And we got to see every chapter, certainly every episode, we get to glimpse a little bit more of this factory. And yeah, we got this like crazy room with the floor is lava, but I really enjoyed just experiencing this like steam stew pot room too, with like all these valves and pipes and, stew pot's like running around to tighten little valves here and there as steam escapes. And it just seems like it's also like this weird workroom that Stew Pot has made his own. Like he's actually making stew
I
in it.
know. I'm like, of course, Stew Pot's cooking stew.
Right. He's got his backup, his reserves.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, this room, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I imagine there's like little artifacts that he's collected, personal like collectibles that
Oh,
he's found. Like,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's made it. This is Stew Pot's room, basically.
Yeah.
So in like a visual adaptation, it'd be really fun to see this room.
Yeah,
It seems like it would be very full of old things.
totally. and like so many little trinkets and things moving and psh,
Yeah, the sounds
yeah.
and yeah, it's alive. I mean, the factory's alive. This room kind of feels alive too, but not in a threatening way. So maybe the factory being alive doesn't have to be 100% ominous and terrifying. It can be a balance, a mix.
Yeah, totally. I could even picture him having a framed photo on the wall.
Yeah, it's like a self-portrait.
Aw, stupid.
Well, thank you again for tuning in to the official podcast of the Tale of Edgar Trunk. This has been episode 3. I think we'll probably have 4 more episodes, maybe 3 more episodes that will conclude book 1. That'll be like our first full season.
Wow.
And wow, that was very appropriate and scary.
Excuse me. It's getting over a cold.
It's here.
Wow.
Well,
Edit.
please follow us or comment or like or rate. It only takes a second. It will definitely help keep us going by letting us know you're out there. And you can always comment to us or reach out to us through the Edgar Trunk website, edgartrunk.co. That's .co. And look forward to sharing the next episode.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.